Good morning. Good morning. I'm Reverend Bill Lyon, your minister here at Heritage Universalist Unitarian Church. And boy, it's great to see your smiling faces and some new ones as well. You know, in a community where belief takes many forms, prayer can be a complicated word. This morning we're going to explore not how to pray or what to believe, but why human beings keep returning to practices of attention, connection, and shared presence. Now our worship associate would like to welcome you. Kathy?
Thank you, Bill. Good morning. As your worship associate, I welcome you to Heritage Universalist Unitarian Church. We're a community that cares for and nurtures the minds and hearts and spirits of all people, regardless of race or creed, age or gender, life experience or beliefs. The sign, I think, in our front yard says it all. Love is the spirit of this church. Whether you're here in the sanctuary or you're joining us via Zoom, we welcome you, Zoomers. Or you may be watching this service in the future as it becomes available on our website. We're glad you're here. If you're a first-time visitor, welcome. Please fill out a name tag and sign our guest book in the lobby if you haven't already done that. And connect with our greeter from the Board of Trustees, who is it? It's not Gary. Who? Kelly.
The one waving.
Oh, back there. Kelly, thank you. She will be happy to talk with you after the service, now that I've identified her, and give you a tour if you like. And just a reminder to those of you here in person, please do set your phones to airplane mode, or you can turn off altogether, since the signal can interfere with our internet system and also our ability to pay attention. The back of your order of service lists many coming attractions, and you can find even more information in what is called the Weekly Connections that comes out by email every Monday. And if you're not receiving that, we might not have your correct email address. Talk to an usher and they can help you with that.
Hey.
Hello.
There is a lot happening here, you know. And there's a couple of these things happening a little quicker than you might think. Like today, as soon as today, right after service.
That's correct. It's Potluck Sunday. Woohoo! We hope you will join us immediately following the service in the Great Hall. That's to the right as you exit the sanctuary. So whether you brought food or not, there's always plenty.
There's also something coming up this Wednesday called the Spirituality of World Repair. It's an adult workshop that Lee Adams, our Director of Lifespan Faith Development, was planning to do previously. It will be a wonderful evening activity, 7 o'clock on Wednesday evening. And then if you're marking calendars a little further out, I want to point out that Saturday, February 28th, this congregation is going to be hosting the other congregations in Cincinnati for another potluck that will take a slightly different form. And Ann Jarbo, seated in the second row, party planner extraordinaire, could use your help. We'll need some setup, some food, and some cleanup. You can reach out to her and you'll probably see some communications about that as well. And have you noticed there's a lot of new faces over the last few months?
I have noticed it. It's really great to see.
And some of you may actually be those new faces. And I've been wondering, you've been coming here maybe regularly for a while, or you want to know a little bit more about Heritage and what membership and belonging means.
So how would someone explore that, Reverend Bill?
Right on cue. Well, next week after church, I'm hosting a relaxed conversation about beginning and membership. No pressure, just space to ask questions, to hear about the community, and I'm also happy to meet with folks one-on-one. And to be clear, being part of a community doesn't depend on joining, but membership can be meaningful step for some of us. For those of you who feel ready, we'll also be welcoming some new members in the coming weeks. There's no single timeline you need to do to figure that out, just an invitation.
So as you can see, there is plenty more happening here at Heritage. But for now, Reverend Bill, would you please call us to worship?
I would. And I'd welcome Sonny to come up to help me with that. Sonny's agreed to light our chalice. These words come to us from Brian Keeley. In times of darkness, we stumble toward the tiny flame. In times of cold, we seek the warming fire. In times of repression, we reach for the lamp of truth. In times of loss, we pray for the comforting light. In times of joy, we light a candle celebration. Spirit of life, as we kindle this light, help us find what we need this day. Come, let us worship together. This Taizé chant is meant to be learned by listening. The choir will begin, and you're welcome to join by singing or humming, or simply by listening and breathing with them.
Let us all please rise together as we recite our covenant. By this covenant, we affirm that
love is the spirit of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve humankind in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Thus,
Good morning. Good morning. Gonna work in a second. Let me invite all of our young people to come forward for our time for all ages. Come on. All right, now we are not going to sit in a line. I know. Okay, we're going to sit in a circle, like a semicircle on the floor. Because if you sit on the edge here, you're going to sit in the line. Okay, there we go. There we go. No, I want you all need to look this way at me. There we go. Okay, again, you're going to see my back. That's okay. Or just the top of my head. It's going to be a beautiful view of a cowlick I have back there, okay? Okay. All right, good morning, all. All right. I have a question for you, and it's okay if we don't know the answer, okay? We have permission to not always know the answer, yes? Okay. So just tell me what you think, or if you really have no clue, you can say that, okay? But it is okay to take a guess, all right? What is prayer? There are looks of horror on their faces, just in case you can't see. Yes? Okay, so sometimes prayer is about like talking to God. Yes, this is a traditional view of prayer, right? If we went in lots of other churches, God would be absolutely essential there. That might not be true for us, though, but that's okay. Yes. It can be like hoping for something. Okay, yes. That's what we call, it's aspirational, right? There's a desire for something beyond what is. Yes. Right, specifically something good, right? It's hoping for something good to happen. We don't generally pray for bad things to happen. Okay? All right. Anything else? Okay. No, that's okay. This is all very good. We often think of prayer as a very structured thing, right? This is our first response, that prayer is talking to God or talking to a higher power, that there's something very structured about that, by which I mean something specific has to happen, right? However, prayer can be something less about what's outside of us and more about something that we do, okay? And it means that prayer might be a lot of everyday things, right? It might not have to be just talking. Maybe it's observing. What's observing? When I say observing, what do I mean? Sunny? Sheila? Yes, Sheila. Looking at something closely, right? Paying attention. So prayer can also be about paying attention to ourselves, maybe how we feel, maybe why we feel how we feel, but it can also be paying close attention to something else, like in the world. So observing gives us an opportunity to connect to ourselves or something beyond ourselves. Yes? Okay, listening. Listening to people and hearing them and not ignoring them. That's, yes. Prayer can also be about connecting to other people, to giving, to valuing other people, to doing that. Yes. And I think listening especially helps us be present in the right now moment, right? Not in a faraway place, not in our head, but listening. Other thoughts. So observing. We can observe ourselves and others. We can listen to others. Prayer is about finding a way in our lives, in our everyday lives, right, to do something that helps us connect in a deeper way to ourselves and to each other. Now, for some of us, prayer could have to do with God. If we believe in God, prayer might be a way that we connect to God as well. But prayer is also a way of connecting more deeply to our world, right? So part of what we can do is we can find ways to turn all sorts of things, everyday things, into prayers. And we can do that by being present in the moment, by really trying to see what's happening, to listen in the moment, and to having intention. Yes? Okay. All right. So we're about to head out. For RE, we're going to go out and into the youth room, okay? Out here, right through the doors, all the way to the corner, okay? All right. Before we leave, I'm going to invite the congregation to help me with a blessing, okay? Congregation, can you repeat after me? Okay. We're going to do this in 3 parts, okay? It's going to be 1 sentence in 3 parts. I'll say the first part, you'll repeat after me. So, and I want all of you to be listening, okay? Blessings are ways that our congregation tells you something that's very important for you to know, and it's about something that they think is important to give to you. That's part of what a blessing does, okay? All right, so, congregation, together we promise to bless you with our attention. In love. All right, let's go. Let's go this way.
We are aware that this microphone is working wonderfully in the sanctuary, but not on Zoom. So this is an audible, and we'll do the best we can with it.
We will. Okay. So speaking of prayer, each Sunday, prayerfully, we are invited to come to the altar and to hold the mic and say our name and share a joy or a sorrow with one another. We call that candles of community. This ritual is an act of awareness that we are spiritually connected, that we are not alone, and that in prayer and sharing ourselves with one another, we grow in love and compassion. A candle is lit for our intentions, symbolizing the light of love that we extend to one another. So we ask you to line up on the outside aisles of the sanctuary if you have a joy or sorrow that you would like to share today. We ask you to say your name and very briefly let us know what is in your heart. Please know that you can come and light a candle in silence when an intention may be too tender to share aloud. Are there joys and sorrows among us?
There are a few candles left. I'm going to light this one right here. For all those joys and sorrows that we know are held in our hearts, and for the fact that there are so many who do not have voice to express them. I'd also like to invite you into a brief time of reverence. In this time of prayer and meditation, we don't ask for answers or solutions. We simply make room for what is true, for the joys we've shared, the grief we carry, the lives we hold in care. I invite you into a few moments of silence. Amen. I think we have a brief video before. Okay, we have Louise Laurie.
So, good morning. I'm Louise Luari. And every week, you're invited from your abundance with a nonprofit organization whose work is touching lives, lifting others up, sharing joy and compassion in some way. And every penny that is shared is passed on to this organization. None of it stays here at Heritage. So I'd like to tell you a little bit about the organization that we're supporting this week, the Haitian Support Center in Springfield, Ohio, and why we chose them. So to do that, I'd like to share a little journey I took last week along with Bob and Ellie Lamb and Bethany Rogers. On Monday, I went home, and I went to church. Home for me, my hometown, is Springfield, Ohio. The church, not a place I usually go on Monday, was a 3-hour gathering of ministers and community organizers who have been working to support, assist, and protect the 15,000 Haitians now living in Springfield under TPS, Temporary Protected Service status. That status was due to expire the next day, and there was the expectation that the town would be swarmed with ICE agents within a matter of a few days after that. Luckily, a brief reprieve has happened in that a federal judge has blocked that from going forward for the time being. But what we heard that day was a spirituality at its best and activism at its most powerful. Ministers and organizers from Springfield and across the country preached like I have never heard preaching. Can I get an amen? They used stories from the Hebrew Scriptures and the Christian New Testament and the first UU principle to unpack what it means to be human, moral, Christian, or just a decent human being. They told the story of the infant Jesus as a refugee in Egypt, of the Samaritan woman who questioned Jesus, "Why would you ask me for water? You're a stranger in this land." Matthew 25, "When did we see you hungry? When did we see you homeless?" And the Beatitudes, "Blessed are the poor." Of the second great commandment, to love your neighbor as yourself, which is the golden rule and an essence of every world religion. And the charge to do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly with your divine. These are stories and themes usually shared one at a time in a single sermon. The impact of hearing these foundational stories of my upbringing, all told in one morning, was a testament of what it means to be human. For this program, especially focused on supporting the Haitian community in Springfield, the message was clear. The essence of our very humanity is how we care for the immigrant, the stranger, the poor, the hungry, and the children, and these immigrants in particular that day. There are several organizations working with the Haitian community, faith-based and civic organizations, started by people in Springfield who stepped up to help. But the Haitian Support Center was started by Haitians to help other Haitians and other immigrants navigate the transition to life in Springfield. They focus their goals in 3 areas: integration, education, and advocacy. They help immigrants integrate smoothly into the community by providing education, job training, legal assistance, and all of these things are essential for success in Springfield. Their children, the students in the community, face many challenges in a new country, and the center supports them with ESL programs, tutoring, mentorship, and driving workshops. And the center advocates for the social, economic, and legal rights of Haitians in Springfield. They organize cultural events to raise awareness and build community. Frank and I went last year to their January Independence Day celebration. And they empower the Haitian community in Springfield, ensuring that their voices are heard at the local, state, and federal levels. So the story of Monday's event drew national attention. There were so many people there that the fire marshal had to ask 150 people to leave before the program could continue. The threat of TPS has temporarily been paused, and all of this was covered nationally. So there's a video we're going to watch a clip from that was on NPR, on public radio, on public television. And in this video, you'll see Vils, and his name is, this is French, and I'm not so good at that, Vils d'Orsanville, as he shares with you some of the worries about his people and that community.
Temporary protected status for Haitians in the U.S. was blocked yesterday by a federal court in Washington, D.C. The program, which allows Haitians to live and work legally in the U.S., was set to expire today, a move that would have left roughly 350,000 people vulnerable to deportation. That uncertainty has one Ohio city bracing as it fears becoming the next focus of immigration enforcement.
Thank you. I have a right to remain silent.
Masked men confronting congregants while others record on their cell phones. A chaotic scene unfolds at a church in Springfield, Ohio. Only it's not real.
Department of Homeland Security, open up!
Community members are role-playing how an ICE raid might unfold. And they clearly plan to resist, armed with scripture and knowledge of their constitutional rights.
I can't imagine what it would be like for me if I had to leave my country because I couldn't live here safely.
Senior Pastor Carl Ruby founded a network of churches in the area offering support to the city's Haitians and in some cases, sanctuary.
I would want people to stand with me. I would want people to protect me. So that's all that we're trying to do.
Viles Dorsonville is originally from Haiti's capital, Port-au-Prince, and moved to Springfield in 2021. He runs the Haitian Support Center in Springfield.
I'm afraid of folks being detained for no reason. I'm afraid of seeing parents being separated from their kids.
Viles Dorsonville says that uncertainty is weighing heavy on his community.
They're tired. When I say tired, I mean they just don't know what to do next.
So your support today will go to support the Haitian community in Springfield through the Haitian Support Center. For folks on Zoom, the link will be in the chat, and folks here in the congregation can give in any way, but there is a QR code there that might be a method that you might like to choose. So the morning offering will now be received. Your gracious generosity will be tremendously appreciated by this group in Springfield, and it's a symbol of all of our commitment to immigrants all over the country. Thank you.
I'd like to share a reading, an excerpt from a book called Teaching a Stone to Talk by Annie Dillard. If you're familiar with Annie Dillard, she tells it like it is. God does not demand that we give up our personal dignity, that we throw in our lot with random people, that we lose ourselves and turn from all that is not God. Really, God needs nothing, asks nothing, and demands nothing. Like the stars. It is a life with God which demands these things. Experience has taught that if knowledge of God is the end, then these habits of life are not the means, but the condition in which the means can operate. I'm going to read that again. Experience has taught that if knowledge of God is the end, then these habits of life are not the means, but the condition in which the means can operate. You do not have to do these things, not at all. God does not, I regret to report, give a hoot. You do not have to do these things unless you want to know God. They work on you. They don't work on God. You do not have to sit outside in the dark, in fact. If, however, you want to look at the stars, you will find that darkness is necessary. But, like God, the stars neither require nor demand it. That's Annie Dillard.
Why pray? Maybe the more pressing question is, why even ask the question, why pray? After all, this, especially here in a UU congregation where we don't even agree on God. Some don't believe in God or prayer at all. Others who do or kind of do don't agree on what form she or he or they might take. What does that even imply about the nature of prayer or conversation with the divine? In a community like ours, prayer can feel like an odd topic, and yet the question keeps returning, especially in times of personal or societal turmoil, when the tug toward prayer or something like it is visceral, felt, not thought. And given that prayer means different things to different people, I do not presume to be able to define it or circumscribe it beyond my power. In the end, you will still need to answer the question for yourself. Why pray? For many, prayer is prescribed in form or offered as a test of faith. And those practices are meaningful for some, but that's not where I start. And for others, prayer is about asking or persuading, kind of like that ATM machine or the vending machine where I put my pin in or drop some coins and sit in expectation for goods or grace to just show up. That's not what I mean by prayer. And yet, there is something that even without shared beliefs, humans keep returning to. Something that looks a lot like prayer. And especially in these moments, like Louise, I find myself drawn toward that practice. In so many areas of my life, I find myself all looking for answers. You know, anybody else looking for answers? Yeah. For me, prayer is not one of those places. For me, those moments are about attention, connection, and telling the truth as I try to understand my place in this world. When I was a teenager growing up at the Methodist Church out in Georgetown, Ohio, prayer mattered to me deeply. I prayed every night. It was where I brought my questions, my pride and my shame, my becoming. And for a long time, I believed I was hearing God answer me. Over time, I recognized that voice that I thought was God's was my own. And I want to be clear, I didn't feel abandoned when I noticed that. I felt freed. Freed to trust that the wisdom I was reaching for didn't disappear when my beliefs changed and evolved. What I called prayer didn't vanish, it changed. It's still a place where I tell the truth about grief and fear and doubt and joy, or at least I try to. It still connects me to others and to something that's larger than myself. It still invites honesty, even when the honest truth is doubt. I suspect many of us know some version of that story, where something that once carried us for a long time no longer quite fits, but something essential remains. So the first function of what I'm calling prayer is attention. And if you hadn't noticed, there are a lot of things vying for our attention. And most of them aren't particularly good for us. Where in our lives might spending 15 minutes in meditation or prayer serve us better than 15 more minutes of doom scrolling? I don't ask that as a moral judgment. I ask as a genuine question about care, about what actually restores us, about what helps us respond rather than react. Because so much of what competes for our attention is designed to keep us agitated, outraged, afraid, and perpetually behind. It trains us to live on the surface of things, skimming from one thing to the next, never quite arriving anywhere. Right? And when that becomes our default posture, we lose touch with our own inner weather, our fears, our hopes, our exhaustion, and our longings. We mistake urgency for importance. We react instead of choose. So practices like prayer, reflection, or meditation, they don't make the world quieter, but they can help us become more settled within ourselves. And in that settling, something shifts. We begin to notice what we're carrying. We begin to recognize what really matters. And we regain the ability to be present in our lives rather than being pulled through them. You know, much of that noise comes from out there. Messages that goad us into reacting and distract us from what really matters. And some of it comes from inside as well, like old scripts, unhealed wounds that try to take control of the narrative. One place to reduce that noise through the intention and attention of reflection, meditation, or prayer. Different words and different traditions for a similar human practice. In those moments, we slow down enough to notice what's actually happening within us, and we begin to tell the truth. And sometimes, if we're quiet enough or long enough, we can hear a still, small, and surprisingly wise voice from within. We've already practiced that together this morning through music and silence and listening before speaking. And once we slow down enough to pay attention, we often discover we're not alone. You see, even when we're not perfectly aligned with our values in our day-to-day life, we return to them, sometimes silently, sometimes together, in something like a prayer. Think about our covenant, or the benediction we will say together later. Words that don't limit us the way many creeds do, but instead affirm our connection to one another and to the values we share. Earlier, Louise spoke about that interfaith prayer gathering in Springfield, and those of us who attended were genuinely moved, at least in my case, to tears. What showed up in that Baptist church was not a shared theology. The clergy present, the priests, imams, rabbis, ministers of all kinds, differed deeply in belief and practice. And among the hundreds gathered, including some of you, that simply did not matter. Right? We prayed. And we kept praying. I think it was 2 hours worth of 10 or 20 prayers. We prayed. But what we were really doing was holding one another and our immigrant neighbors. We were acknowledging a container of care and love that's large enough to hold something bigger than our isolated selves. sometimes prayer sounds like words, sometimes like silence, and sometimes it looks like showing up. Keeping watch, standing witness, protecting neighbors, or giving what we can. In the face of fear that was real and resolve that was shared, one of the prayer leaders named it a God moment. And that resonated, even with the heretic inside of me. In moments like that, even the godless can find meaning beyond words. Moments that individuals call and communities call to with very different worldviews and hold space together for the protection of everyone. I suspect that many of us have found ourselves at the edge of what grit and perseverance alone can handle. Whether through illness, addiction, loss, or tragedy, or through the more tender moments like the joy of new life, new relationships, new understanding. Moments like these, we're often reminded of something simple and difficult. We cannot do this alone. Awe, whether born of overwhelm or joy, it needs its own container. A place where grief and gratitude and fear and joy can be held without being fixed. And prayer can be that place. And prayer may be less about changing the universe than about changing our understanding about where we fit inside of that universe and how we're held by it. So once we slow down enough to pay attention, and once we remember that we're not alone, something else becomes possible. Not answers, but honesty. At its best, prayer can be a place where honesty itself is enough, where we can bring our whole selves without performance or judgment. Sometimes it doesn't bring clarity. Sometimes it doesn't bring peace. Sometimes what shows up isn't comfort at all, but the thing we've been trying not to feel. That's what shows up. And that too belongs. There are many paths to attention, connection, and truth. You don't have to call what I've been describing prayer. You don't have to engage in these practices at all, any more than you need to look up at the stars. But many of us return to them because life keeps asking more of us than grit alone can give. Prayer doesn't require belief. It requires honesty. Sometimes the honesty of not having words at all, but of resting in what carries us, even when we don't know what's coming next. can gather around the sanctuary. With a big crowd, that takes a little more doing than you'd think. We carry with us what has been named, what has been sung, what's been held in silence. Let us gather now, remembering that prayer often continues, not in words, but in how we stay connected to one another. Ellie, would you be willing to extinguish our chalice? Would you lead us in the covenant?